everybody. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Fresh Outlook, the show where we're talking about what you're talking about. As always, I'm your host, Taryn Brill, but just call me TWB. On today's show, we'll begin by discussing immigration reform. This week, we saw some groundbreaking legislation from a group of bipartisan senators. We'll break it down. Then we'll discuss the future of the GOP. In light of Obama's divisive presidential victory, is the future of the Republican Party as a whole in this country in danger? Then we'll move across the pond, or as they say, across the pond, to Britain, where there's concern that the UK might leave the European Union. We'll look at what's at stake. We'll also be having a very special guest from across the pond. We'll round out the show finally by discussing how smartphones have changed our lives. Do they really make us smarter? You be the judge. Before we get the conversation started, though, as always, let's meet our all-star panel. Let's begin with, James.
I'm James Braxton Peterson. I'm the Director of Africana Studies at Lehigh University and a contributor to thegrio.com.
Welcome, JBP. That's our nickname for him. Let's move on to a very special guest, Paris.
I'm Paris Lee, an immigration attorney in Edison, New Jersey.
Welcome. And finally, Dee Dee.
Hi, I'm Dee Dee Benke, and I am a commentator on Fox News and MSNBC, CNN, and I worked in the Bush White House and the Bush campaign.
Wow, is that all? Very, very impressive, making the rest of us look bad. Anywho, fine-looking panel, thank you for joining us. We'll get to the conversation in just a moment. But first, earlier this week, some groundbreaking immigration legislation was proposed by a group of 8 bipartisan senators. Obama's backed the reform measure. Let's take a look.
Immigration reform continues to take center stage as President Barack Obama lays out his plan during a speech at a high school in Las Vegas.
We have to deal with the 11 million individuals who are here illegally. We all agree that these men and women should have to earn their way to citizenship. But for comprehensive immigration reform to work, it must be clear from the outset that there is a pathway to citizenship.
President Obama's approach would be a comprehensive overhaul of immigration laws, including better enforcement of immigration laws, providing a pathway to citizenship for 11 million undocumented immigrants, and reforming the legal immigration system.
We need Congress to act, and not just on the DREAM Act. We need Congress to act on a comprehensive approach that finally deals with the 11 million undocumented immigrants who are in the country right now. That's what we need.
The president says he's encouraged by a bipartisan effort at reform in the Senate announced yesterday, a plan developed by 4 Democrats and 4 Republicans.
We cannot continue as a nation with 11 million people residing in the shadows. And we have to address the issue, and it has to be done in a bipartisan fashion.
Under their bipartisan blueprint, millions of immigrants will get immediate but provisional status. It also calls for strengthening border controls, better monitoring of visitors, and cracking down on the hiring of undocumented workers. Only once all the above benchmarks have been accomplished can illegal immigrants already here in the U.S. begin the process of permanent residence through green cards. It's a complicated issue to tackle, but many Americans think something must be done.
What are we going to do? Can we round everybody up and just get rid of them? I mean, they're here already, so we have to do something.
Like you said, they're doing jobs that normally other people wouldn't do. I know a lot of people are upset that they think that they're taking jobs away from people who would otherwise do them. But, you know, America's always been about being inclusive. It's, you know, it's a big melting pot.
I mean, first off, it is nice to see what a comprehensive bipartisan effort, 4 and 4. It's rare you see that these days. But let's get into it. I mean, this is a big deal. This is the most comprehensive plan since, I believe, 2007, and that failed.
Yeah, actually, 86.
Oh.
86 was the last major immigration.
Oh, I thought there was some effort made.
There were efforts.
Well, President Bush definitely made a huge effort.
Yeah, I thought it was under Bush and it
because
tanked.
He tried.
He tried. Okay.
He definitely tried, but so you are correct.
Sure, right. 86, obviously, before that. But
Right.
what do you, I mean, Paris, you specialize in this. This is your bread and butter. So what was your reaction to this plan? Is it
I'm
hogwash,
encouraged
or?
by it. No, I think there's a realistic possibility that something may pass this year because of the fact that it is bipartisan. You have Republicans and Democrats working together, whereas in 2007, I think the Republicans are more anti-immigration. I think now they realize that, hey, you know, I mean, they lost the election due in part to the fact that they did not embrace the Hispanic population. So
Sure. Is that why they realize it? Because, oh, we keep losing, we keep losing guys.
I mean, to be honest, yes.
That's a major overhaul. But let's discuss this path to citizenship. Is it a legitimate path? What do we think, James?
Well, I agree. First of all, we on this show at the top of the year, we really predicted that this is one of the things that would get done because of the sort of demographic pressure on the Republican Party to really come to the table. I think that's part of the reason why we see the change. I think you're right that the real sort of devil's in the details here around this issue of securing the borders, because you notice the pathway to citizenship is contingent upon secure borders. Now,
right.
I don't know how much more secure the borders need to be with net immigration at 0 right now.
Right.
So that's, to me, that's really, really tricky. And I think the difference between this Congress plan and the president's plan is just that, that the pathway to citizenship under Obama is not contingent upon some nebulous securing of the borders. And so I think we're going to have to sort of dial down on that and figure out exactly what that means. What does it mean to have secure borders?
Some say it's short-sighted and self-defeating. I mean, Dee Dee, what do you think?
Well, I think Marco Rubio is right on this, and I think that there is a point where we're going to have to come together, because now, in getting back to the election, when we get our clocks clean, the Republicans did 70% voted for President Obama.
Right.
So
of Hispanics.
Yes. So we know that we're going to have to change with the demographics. The Republican Party demographics have to change with the country. So the pathway is going to be somewhere in the middle, we hope. And as far as securing the borders, of course the borders have to be secure. Devil is in the details, you're right, but that's part of it too. And I think most Americans, definitely want that. And it's a national security issue, so we do need to secure our borders. But we also, 11 million people that aren't paying taxes, that are already here. I mean, we've got to do something. The problems in Washington, ICE and these programs are terrible. I mean, they're not organized.
What about the DREAM Act? I mean, how does this affect the DREAM Act going forward?
It does. The DREAM Act, the real DREAM Act would lead to permanent residency and ultimately to citizenship. What we have now is the DREAM Deferred Action, which is not doesn't actually lead to a green card. Just gives you probation, kind of like protected status. So I mean, there's still some work that has to be done.
Yeah. I mean, the DREAM Act is a sort of smaller, but I think a really, really important part of this, because remember, this is targeted towards those folk who were brought here or came here sort of as children without any kind of free choice. They've grown up here, they've gone to U.S. schools, they've gone to U.S. colleges. And again, one thing that we don't talk about enough in this discussion is this is an economic issue as well. The tax piece is a really, really important part of it, but also we lose a lot of immigrants whose green card status is run out after they finish master's degrees, PhD degrees. And when you look at the data, the immigrant population is responsible for a lot of startup businesses, a lot of inventions, a lot of patents, and so it's also an economic issue, and I think Americans need to understand that piece of it as well.
But I don't know, a lot of people say this is just a recycled effort. I mean, is it really that different from what we've seen? And if this does go into effect, when will we see some change? I mean, it goes to Congress in March?
Well, I think the Senate's going to debate it in the spring. That's what my understanding of it. And then once the Senate votes on it, then the House is going to vote for it, and hopefully the President will, if they can come to some sort of compromise, hopefully the President will sign it.
But again, is this just a recycled effort? I mean,
well, it's been a very small effort, actually. I mean, there hasn't been nearly the effort, and there has been nearly the resources. I almost think it needs to be a new Homeland Security. You know how President Bush created Homeland Security? We might need to bring in a new branch, a new secretary for immigration. It is that big of a problem. There's so many things to address. What about the people that want to come in from Canada, want to come in from other countries? They get behind in the line. They're not happy about that either, because there are so many areas to address. We really almost need a new office for this.
Possibly.
James?
I'm a little bit skeptical about adding anything else to our government.
You sound like a Republican.
I just am in favor of pragmatic and efficient government. Now, maybe we need to resource better the sort of Office of Immigration and kind of develop it a little bit.
It's a disaster now. Nothing's happening. That's the
problem.
problem.
So maybe if we properly resource it. And again, I don't know if the emphasis needs to be on security necessarily. The emphasis needs to be on strategy, right? We live in a country that a lot of people around the world want to live in. And when we think about that in the most sort of economic ways, we can draw the best from all the fields of engineering, from sciences, from green economies to our economy. And that's, I think, what has made this country great historically. And I think that's what's got to be at the forefront of any discussions around immigration reform now.
Some people just say this is de facto amnesty. It's it's after the fact.
Not at all.
Not at all. Why?
I mean, amnesty basically you're getting a green card. Over here, they're talking about probationary legal status. You're not even getting a permanent residence yet. You're just getting probationary status. At some point later on, if you're still here, then you could eventually work towards getting a permanent residence or a green card. But you're not getting the actual green card. You're not getting citizenship. They're not conferring upon you immediately.
Okay.
And the whole concept of amnesty doesn't apply to the challenges that we're faced with right now. 11 million undocumented folk who've already been here, who are working here, many of them contributing in ways that are not sort of maximized in terms of our economy. We just have to think about it a little bit differently. This is a particular sort of issue. But Dee Dee's right. There's a lot more.
It was fair. You have to be fair. I mean, who's next in line? Is it these folks? Are the folks from Hungary that want to come over? From Turkey that want to come over?
Right.
I mean, who gets in line first?
Right,
So there is that
exactly.
issue.
There's some issues. I do want to toss to another piece, you guys, before we continue the conversation, specifically from the immigrants' standpoint. Take a look.
Union workers and immigration reform supporters gather for a public viewing of President Barack Obama's Tuesday speech on immigration. They welcomed the call for comprehensive reform and Obama's pledge to forge a path to citizenship for millions of illegal citizens.
But we feel that in this time, it's different because the Republicans and even the Democrats and others realize that the Latinos have power, that the Latino vote is very important.
Obama has appealed to Latino voters in the past by promising progressive reform. Now they want to see those promises fulfilled. We have to continue fighting on the streets, said one attendee. The immigrants shouldn't be afraid. They need to come out to the streets. They need to come out and vote because thanks to us, the ones that are here legally, Mr. President is where he is for the next 4 years. With 11 million undocumented people living in the United States, the path to reform is steep. But Obama said that if Congress is unable to act in a timely fashion, he will propose immigration legislation of his own and insist that they vote on it right away.
So the question is, if you put yourself in the shoes of the immigrants themselves, what are their concerns? What do you think their reaction is to a plan like this? Is this a step in the right direction? Is this viable? I mean, will this really impact their lives in a good way?
For them, absolutely, yeah. Because right now they're shadow citizens. They have no status. They're not. They're always looking over their shoulder. They could get picked up by ICE. They can get some sort of probationary status. Yes, they're not permanent residents, they're not citizens, but they're allowed to be here, they're allowed to work with authorization. They're allowed to get Social Security numbers, they can contribute to the system, they can pay their taxes.
That's right. And there's no one size fits all here. Different immigrant populations have different needs and have different sort of contributions they make. A lot of times we want to associate criminal activity with immigrant populations, but when we look at the data, what we really see is that they're actually the targets of crime because of their precarious relationship with law enforcement. And so we can really address crime by helping these folks to get documented and having them sort of brought into the citizenry more directly.
Well, I just want to give you guys one quote. Representative Smith from Texas, he just completed a term as the chairman, you were laughing, of the House Judiciary Committee. He oversees immigration issues, and he's quoted as saying in a statement, by granting amnesty, I know we talked about that a moment ago, the Senate proposal actually compounds the problem by encouraging more illegal immigration.
Well, to be fair, I mean, when you're in Texas, when you're in Arizona, there are problems there. I mean,
big time.
So, I mean, you can't just say, well, there's no crime, there are no issues. I mean, because whenever you have folks that are undocumented and you have people that come from all different shapes, sorts, and backgrounds, you are going to have problems because there's no way for us to control it. So they're concerned because they do have the crime, they do have the issues. I mean, it's just a fact. So you can understand, at least they've had a different experience.
They have a different issue, yeah. Again, but then how many issues do we want to talk about? Because if we prosecuted the war on drugs,
we have about 40 minutes.
Yeah, that's the problem. It's such a big deal.
If we prosecuted the war on drugs differently, that would help to make our borders a little bit more secure, especially for states like California, Arizona, and Texas.
So is that where we start? We start with the drug war?
Well, I think it has
so it gets back to security. So security is an issue.
Security is, of course, security is an issue. But when they're talking about securing the borders in terms of people coming in, there's net zero immigration. Crime is a different issue. Well, the reason why I want to talk about targeting is because we think of immigrants or undocumented immigrants as somehow being overwhelmingly populated by criminals, when in fact they're actually more targeted by criminals because of their relationship with law enforcement. But if we address the drug issue a little bit differently, that would help to secure the borders. There's no question
definitely need to do
so
something
immigrants live in
differently.
fear in those areas, I would imagine. So
Absolutely.
I mean,
And the coyotes come over, the people that abuse them, whenever they come over. I mean, that's a crime too.
Yes,
what did you say, Paris?
That's part of what James was talking about as far as immigrants working with law enforcement. That's the basis of the U visa, which is to help victims of crime.
Yes.
Because a lot of immigrants or a lot of undocumented aliens are afraid to come forward because of the fact that they don't want to reveal themselves.
Well, what about this new Arizona legislation that would require immigration checks in hospitals? They're not saying they'll deny you coverage. We'll fix your you know, we'll fix your boo-boo, but we just want to make sure that you're not undocumented, and then we'll report you to the authorities after we give you some stitches.
Right.
I mean,
and then you'll be detained, and then you'll be.
I mean, what's better? You bleed out, you die because you're afraid to give yourself to the authorities. I mean, what a horrible situation to be in.
It is a horrible situation, but you can understand the perspective of the hospitals and the authorities. I mean, these are people. I mean, it's taxpayer money that are, you know, they're being able to have their boo-boos fixed, as you say, and we don't even know who they are, and they need to be documented. I mean, it just is part of it. They're here illegally, so you
support it. Treat them and then report them.
Listen, but if we pass what's on the table right now, that won't happen because
and
they'll
that's
become
true. And that shows the
taxpayers.
problem. There are so many problems with it. There's no doubt about it.
I just, I mean, how long this path? How long does this path take?
It could be forever.
How long does it take to secure the borders? You know, so you got to get in line with everyone who already applied for a green card. I mean, how big is that line? I mean, it just seems like this whole thing, this legislation, just seems very semantical. It's very general. There's
the people that live on the borders have very different problems than we don't see that. We don't see what they live through. I mean, they really do have issues and drug problems and murders and beheadings. These things do happen on the borders. It's a problem.
All right, so will we see?
Some version of this bill is going to get passed, no question about that, and will alleviate some of the pressure around the borders and around state resources for things like education and healthcare by bringing in that tax base. That's very, very important. Once you bring in 11 million workers into the tax base, that will address some of the economic concerns.
Let me ask you this: if the Republicans wouldn't have lost the election, would we be having this conversation?
No,
would this bill be put forth? I mean, is that really seven out of 10 people did not vote for the GOP? Therefore, we finally must, you know, work on this 11.5 million illegal immigration
This is
situation.
definitely politically motivated, but listen, that happens on both sides, right? I mean, the demographics drive political interests. That's sadly how the political system works, and that's certainly responsible for where we are right now with immigration, which I think is a good thing.
Okay.
It is a good thing, and even if that is the reason, it's still going to get done.
That's right.
But yeah, that is a big motivation. There's no doubt about it. We got our clocks clean, so it's like, whoa, it was a huge wake-up call, which is important. It's good, and if the result is good in the end, so be it.
Okay. I mean, Paris, this is, like we said, this is your specialty.
Right.
Was there anything specific you would have liked to have seen included in this legislation?
No, I don't. I'm a little concerned, though, with the fact that, you know, the Republicans, I mean, they are embracing the idea of addressing the situation, but first they want to deal with the border security first.
Yeah.
And again, the question is how secure will the border ever be?
Yes, that's what I want to know.
There's just so much to do.
Right.
There's a lot of big issues.
What about you, Dee Dee? Is there something you would have, any major criticism?
I think the security needs to be there. I mean, I'm going to toe the line on that, but I really think that they need to bring more than just these senators. I think it's such a big problem that they need to address every issue. There's so many moving parts. There's no way that's like, oh, okay, they're going to bring it up in the spring. That's not soon enough. They need to really have not just a task force. They need to have an army working on this. So there's just lots and lots that needs to be done.
Okay. Well, with that, we're going to go to break, but we'll leave you with one quote from Senator that's a combination of Senator to General. I'm inventing words. Senator Chuck Schumer. We have a long way to go, but this bipartisan blueprint is a major breakthrough. So you can't deny that. All right. Good deal, Chuck. Good deal. Coming up, in light of Obama's convincing victory last year's presidential election, along with his inaugural speech, many wonder about the future of the GOP in this country. We'll get into it next on Fresh Outlook. Stay with us.